Welcome to our informational webinar about the Deliberative Citizenship Network. My name is Graham Bullock. I'm an associate professor of political science at Davidson College and also the faculty director of the Deliberative Citizenship Initiative and the PI and project director of our new Deliberative Citizenship Network, which is housed in the Martin Institute for Public Good at Davidson College. So to start us off, I thought I would present a couple of the many challenges that are facing not only society at large, but also higher education. This starts with the hyperpolarization and hyperpartisanship that is really plaguing our communities and our society at large. And it's tied to a lack of engagement with different viewpoints, dehumanization of people we disagree with, misinformation and disinformation, and kind of a general stagnation of ideas and policies. Lots of problems, lots of challenges. So what do we do about this? Well, there's been a lot of work on engaging in civil discourse, bridging divides, practicing constructive dialogue, reasoning better together, all of which are really important and tie into our answer to this question of how do we overcome these challenges, which is by being deliberative citizens. And so in this webinar today, I'm going to talk a little more about the nature of deliberative citizenship, the experience of the Deliberative Citizenship Initiative at Davidson College that we've had over the past 6 years, in trying to advance more civil discourse, more constructive dialogue, more bridging against differences, and the design of our new Deliberative Citizenship Network, which we're launching now, and I'll talk more towards the end about how institutions across the country can apply to be a part of this new network. So without further ado, what are we talking about when we say deliberation? Generally, it's a form of structured discourse focused on building both shared and new understandings of a particular issue that transcends previously held positions and enable collective actions and decisions. And it sort of ties into both civil discourse and civic discourse by being respectful and reasoned argument about issues of public concern. And it relates to other forms of discourse, like conversation, more informal discourse, discussion, dialogue, debate, and deliberation. And deliberation sort of serves as a way to kind of tie in and tie together all these other forms of connecting with one another and engaging on challenging topics. So that's deliberation. Why do we talk about citizenship? Well, first of all, it's not, in this case, the passport you hold, your nationality. It's a broader concept that we talk about in political science and other social sciences as the work that people do together to solve the challenges that face society, whether it's in your local community as a local citizen, in your country or your state as a national citizen, or in terms of the whole globe as a global citizen. And there's lots of forms of citizenship: political citizenship, civil citizenship, even market citizenship. And there's many ways to enact that citizenship: by protesting, by voting, by volunteering, by donating, by purchasing products or avoiding products that you disagree with, the practices of making them or the companies that produce them. But at the heart and the base of all forms of citizenship is deliberation, is engaging, talking with your fellow citizens about what the problems are and what to do about them. And so that's why we really kind of focus on deliberation, citizenship and deliberation, and deliberative citizenship specifically, the practice of working together to solve challenges facing a community through inclusive, informed, and reflective discourse, where participants weigh arguments, consider diverse perspectives, and reason together before making collective decisions. And this is what we've been doing at Davidson College for the past 6 years, since 2020, trying to create opportunities for Davidson students, faculty, staff, and members of the wider community to productively engage with one another on difficult and contentious issues facing our community and society. And we do this by teaching deliberative skills, reinforcing humane instincts, building meaningful community, catalyzing creative solutions, and conducting research on deliberation. We try to accomplish these goals through three main programs or categories of programs. One is in the curriculum, in the classroom. The other is on campus through co-curricular programming. And the third is in and with the community. More specifically, the DCI starts really with training, right? Training our fellows, our senior fellows who are our Davidson students in how to facilitate challenging conversations, and also working with faculty members and community members on these skills as well. And so we have Davidson faculty and faculty members from other institutions, actually over 60 from 28 institutions across the country who have been a part of our deliberative pedagogy or DEEP collaborative, which is a one-year program where they come together and learn about deliberative pedagogy and how to embed more deliberation into their courses. And then they actually do so in courses they develop back at their institutions. And they write blogs about their experiences and in general have had amazing experiences doing this work and working together, learning from each other as they go through the process. We have faculty workshops and faculty panels where they share with one another their successes, their challenges, and what they've figured out in their own courses. And we also invite community members as well, and staff and faculty to participate in these training programs also. This then enables our fellows and senior fellows to facilitate, to host our deliberative forums, our small group discussions called D teams, their own deliberation projects on topics they're interested in, and then also deliberative gateways, more kind of social, informal, low stakes events that invite classmates, community members into the sort of opportunities to engage with each other on a whole range of different topics. We also do a speaker series on deliberative citizenship and then conduct research and assessment on how we're doing, what's working well, what's not working well, how we can improve. And then with all this, there's a whole sort of lot of communications and outreach to invite people from on campus and off campus to participate in these programs. And this is a key part of making this work effective and successful. So that's kind of the structure of DCI. And here's some, kind of just give you a sense of what each of these are. Here's a picture from our facilitator training program. Students are very involved in this process, and it's very interactive and hands-on opportunities for lots of mock deliberations and opportunities to really practice the skills you're learning. The fellows then continue throughout the year talking about their work together, preparing for our programs, debriefing about them afterwards, continuing to learn about how to facilitate challenging discussions. And then many of those conversations are in the context of our deliberative forums, which can be about local and national issues. They usually start with an expert roundtable with experts with different perspectives on the issue at hand. And then in the second half, the audience members, whether online or in person, can engage with each other, facilitated by our fellows in conversation about that topic. They also have a deliberation guide, usually ones that we write, that provide background on the topic, and then also provide discussion questions to guide the conversation. Some of the topics, we've done over 20 of these at this point. Some of the topics we've done: free speech and inclusion, economic mobility. Here's a picture from our deliberative forum on guns in America, our deliberative forum on the challenge for democracy. And then I think I've got a little clip, hopefully this will work, from that forum where you can sort of see the conversations that are happening. So hopefully you get a sense from that short little clip, the dynamism, the energy of these conversations that we've been hosting, and also the diversity of the participants. We have, you know, community members and students, faculty, staff, all talking with one another in these conversations. Another thing we do are what we call deliberative D teams, which are small group discussions, 5 to 12 participants. They meet several times in a semester, so they can kind of build a sense of community and trust and really be able to share what they really think about the topics at hand. And those are both virtual and in person as well. And some of the topics we've covered: guns in America, again, college admissions policies, abortion, healthcare, environmental challenges, local legacies of slavery, policing, safety, and justice. We've done a whole range of topics. Just about every controversial topic you can think of, we've covered. And each semester, we've had about 150 to 200 people participating in teams of, like I said, 5 to 10 people. And they're all led by our trained facilitators. So we also, I mentioned before, our Deliberative Pedagogy Collaborative. Here is our, I think, most recent group of faculty members who participated in the DEEP Collaborative. They start with an orientation workshop here at Davidson. Everybody flies in for 2 days to kind of do a deep dive on how to embed deliberation into their courses. And then we continue the conversation over the course of the year. So we meet online as a large group, as smaller groups, and also in small, like kind of partner 2 to 3 person groups where we really get to know each other, share thoughts, fears, successes along the way as they're building their courses, developing their deliberative course plans and their syllabi. And at the end, as I mentioned, the faculty members all write blog posts about their experience, and we publish it on our DCI blog. We also have a speaker series I mentioned. So we've had some great speakers over the last few years: Sarah Drury, Leela Brammer, Martine Carcason, Christy Vines, Deborah Haughey, Eric Liu, and others who come to talk about deliberation, about deliberative democracy, about both the challenges and opportunities for doing this work, not only in higher education, but also more broadly in society. And as I mentioned, we also have a research component where we ask questions and do collect data to figure out what is going on in our deliberations. Do they contain certain types of arguments or discourse? And to what extent are certain types of discourse and dynamics associated with better deliberative outcomes? And this is all, sort of interesting from an academic perspective, but also important for us to sort of think about, okay, how can we improve? What's working, what's not, and iterating and improving over time. So here's another way to look at the DCI, and to make the point that all these different programs are very much interconnected. And this was one of the things when we started the DCI back in 2020, we had seen some great programs across the country already, some 5, 10, 15 years old, and they were fantastic. But we noticed that they were, sometimes really good with students, or really good with alumni, or really good in the classroom, but very few actually kind of tied all these together. And that's something we thought we should try to do with the DCI at Davidson, is really kind of create that network, or create some, sort of dynamics of the sum is greater than the parts, where, there's linkages across these different programs and they can really build on each other. And that's what we're trying to do with the Deliberative Citizenship Network, which you can see here in the picture, which is very much designed to connect with, build on the work that the DCI has been doing, and expand it beyond just at Davidson, but at higher education institutions across the country. And so now, I think what most of you are here for is to learn more about that network, which is led by the DCI. And the DCI is actually part of the Martin Institute for Public Good, a new institute at Davidson College, which we're very excited about. And it's funded by the Department of Education through a FIPSI grant that we just received in December of last year. And so I'll try to kind of map out a little bit, what are the sort of main components of the DCN and why you, or your colleagues, might be interested in joining, because we'd love to have you join this new network. So the core sort of thing that institutions, partner institutions that will be part of the DCN is to create what we're calling a campus discourse team. And this discourse team would include not only faculty, but also students and staff members. So 2 faculty who would join the Deliberative Pedagogy Collaborative, go through that same process that I outlined before, each would develop a course in their own sort of field and discipline that embedded deliberation into it. And then they would develop a 3rd course that they would co-teach or teach together in some way that combined their expertise and interest in deliberation. There would also be 10 students. I think we say, if you have trouble getting 10, 8 to 10 would be okay. But these 10 students would really be at the vanguard of advancing deliberation, civil discourse on your campuses. And then also a coordinator of all this work. It could be a staff member, it could be a faculty member, but that faculty member wouldn't go through the DCI process, the deep collaborative process, but would really be sort of helping connect, coordinate the students and the work of trying to advance, design more civil discourse programming at your institution. So that's the campus discourse team. And the first thing all the teams will do is join our deliberation facilitator training. If you're close enough to Davidson, you could do it in person, but we've been doing these trainings for 6 years in a hybrid way, where you can also join online, and that's perfectly fine and works really well. But that really is kind of the baseline of, how do we do this and how do we facilitate conversations about difficult topics? So we start there, and then, we'll come visit your campuses and be sort of available as coaches, as consultants, as you figure out how you adapt all of this stuff about civil discourse and deliberative citizenship to your campus. You guys are the experts, right? We're here to help provide you with some ideas, some lessons learned. We certainly don't have the silver bullet, but we maybe do have some ideas that might be helpful. And then, our staff, our DCN staff and students will serve as liaisons to your campuses to help you through that process. Whether you're just starting, you haven't done anything on this before, or you've been doing it for a while and you just want to kind of continue to learn and grow. And part of it, the point of it being a network, is that we're all learning together, right? And we can learn from you guys a lot as well, and that you guys can all learn from one another. So that's that. And then as you're doing this, you're figuring out, okay, how are we going to develop a civil discourse program on our campus this year, right? What are we going to do this year as a group? That's what the discourse team is really kind of designed to do, as well as think about, okay, how do we extend beyond our first year as a member of the Deliberative Citizenship Network? What are the next steps that we want to propose to our institution? Along the way, as you're doing that, as you're developing your civil discourse programs, and we do ask that every institution does host at least one program on their own in that first year, but you'll also be able to and encouraged to, as a member of the network, to participate in both our D teams and our deliberative forums. So there'll be a kind of ready-made plug and play process where you can just kind of jump in. We'll have designed the expert roundtables and selected topics, and you'll be able to just kind of join and bring your campus, your students, your faculty, your staff, even your community members into those conversations. At the end of the year, we also will have a student convention at Davidson College where you'll be able to send 2 of your students to Davidson to participate in a deliberation about a issue of public concern, and really to practice the deliberative skills and dispositions that they've learned over the course of the year in a very applied policy context. And that we're really looking forward to, and our fellows would be the hosts of those conversations here at Davidson. And then finally, not to forget the faculty, right? The Deliberative Pedagogy Collaborative, right? So those 2 faculty members will be a part of that program, and they'll develop their courses, and then also help think about an academic pathway for your institution, that would expand on their work, that would, maybe create a minor, maybe would create some kind of program in the curriculum that would be able to sort of continue the work of advancing deliberation in the classroom beyond the first year of being a member of the network. So that's sort of the overview. And couple sort of highlights, so you do this, you apply, you join. What do you get out of it as an institution? Well, first of all, you get some funding, right? So there's a lot of great programs out there that offer similar training and opportunities, but you usually have to pay for them, often thousands of dollars. In this context, the DCN, we're actually offering funding to institutions, $10,000 per institution, that is designed to go as stipends or payments to that discourse team, those faculty, the staff, and or the staff/faculty coordinator, and the students. The default is that and this is what we've been doing for several years, is it $2,000 for each faculty member, $1,000 for that staff/faculty coordinator, and then $500 for each student member of the discourse team. Access to all of the training programs I've talked about, implementation support, that sort of coaching, consultation from our staff, and then being a part of this national network where you'll be able to sort of connect with others who are trying to do similar things on their campuses. So that's kind of a broad overview. Now I'll kind of dive into the application process a little bit. So the first question is, who should apply? Well, really, everyone, every accredited higher education institution. We really want to be as inclusive as we can. We like large and small schools, public and private schools, community colleges, minority serving institutions, religiously affiliated institutions, tribal colleges, military academies. We'd love to have institutions from across the spectrum and also across the country join the DCN. What do you need to do? What are the requirements? Well, you need to sort of commit to creating a team. The application asks you to identify the faculty and or staff members who would be kind of members of that team, and a plan for recruiting students for participation on that team. Programmatic commitment, commitment to being part of our evaluation processes, goal alignment, and administrative endorsement, a letter from a leader of your institution endorsing this work of the discourse team. And then, we have some selection criteria, your engagement capacity, institutional readiness, commitment to civil discourse, and then the learning value for the network. That what will you be able to bring to the conversation that will be helpful, to other institutions that are also part of the network. I do want to make a note about that institutional readiness thing, right? So that's not to say you already have a whole program, right? You may not, but there's some program, some department, some infrastructure in place that is going to be able to sort of, take what the discourse team is doing and run with it, right? So it could be, again, it could be any academic department. It could be a department like Center for Civic Engagement, but something that is able to sort of be a home for this work. But again, you don't have to have an existing civil discourse program. And in fact, we welcome and encourage those institutions that don't have a civil discourse program, as well as those that do. Because I've found, through our deep collaborative work, having people with a range of experience is actually really helpful for everyone involved. The timeline for this year, so the deadline for submitting your application is April 13th. We'll start the reviews the next day, and then we'll hope to notify institutions whether they're in the first cohort by April 22nd. If we have the good problem of having lots of institutions, we'll definitely encourage institutions. This is a 4-year program, right? So we've got 4 years of funding to keep this network going. And if you aren't selected this year, you'll certainly be eligible for future years. And then give about a month or so for institutions to confirm that they are indeed going to participate. And then faculty preparation begins to get ready for that orientation workshop, which is August 12th to 14th here at Davidson. We provide all the funding for travel and accommodations and food and all that. And that's for the 2 faculty members in your team. Everyone participates in that deliberation facilitator training workshop on it's 2 days, 2 Sunday afternoons, August 30th and September 6th for 4 hours. Very intensive and engaging, and we believe very helpful training process that will really kind of jumpstart your engagement with this work. So that's a timeline. How can you learn more? So there's links here and also QR codes to the application for joining the Deliberative Citizenship Network, and also a link to more information specifically about the deliberative pedagogy or deep collaborative on the DCI website, where you can learn more about all of the work of the DCI, including our forums, our D teams, but specifically to learn more about what is involved, what's required, and what you get out of being a part of the deep collaborative. So with that, I'm going to stop there and certainly want to answer any questions that people have. But thank you all for being here, and love to take any questions. I think if you can write them in the chat, that'd be great. This is a webinar. I'm not actually used to webinars, so not seeing you all here is kind of interesting, but please write your chat, and not being able to call on you is also different, but let you guys talk yourselves, but please write anything down in the chat, questions that you might have, and I will do my best to address the questions that come up. Q&A. I see some questions in the Q&A. Okay, here we go. So question from Laura Schwartz. How many institutions would you like to see in the first year? So we're committed. Thanks for that question, Laura. We're committed to having 100 institutions over 4 years. And we've said that we're trying to aim for 18 institutions the first year and kind of ramp up over time. That said, if we have a lot of institutions, we do have some flexibility in adding more to that. So we don't want to have too many, because we want it to sort of feel like a nice cohort. But we're looking forward to having a diverse range of institutions represented. So hopefully that helps. Okay, so anonymous attendee, I have a question from you. About the stipends. So the $10,000 just covers the stipends for the faculty, the staff/faculty coordinator, and then the student stipends or payments. And how exactly you pay those out, may depend on your individual institution, and that's something we can work with you on. But that's for the stipend. So the travel to Davidson for that deliberative pedagogy collaborative orientation workshop, that's separate. That's not covered by the $10,000. We will pay for that separately. Accommodations, food while you're here, etc. So that's fully paid for. As is travel for the student participants in the student convention at the end of the year. That will be fully paid for by us, by the DCN. So that's an extra as well. And then also, when we send our students or staff members out to your institutions, their travel is paid for on our end as well. So hopefully that answers your question. And then Maggie Cummins. Hey, Maggie, good to see that you're here. Could you elaborate on what you mean by deliberative learning? So yeah, I think this fits within that sort of general framework of deliberative pedagogy. And this is actually a term developed by Tim Schafer and Nick Longo in a book that we use called Deliberative Pedagogy. And it's this idea that we often learn best when we're engaging with others, especially on these kind of contentious topics, right? And so embedding more opportunities in the classroom for your students to talk with each other, and not just at you or at each other, on challenging topics. And these could be, big public issues, abortion, guns, immigration, et cetera. They can also be debates within your discipline, right? And so we've had faculty members participate in the deep collaborative from across the sort of disciplinary spectrum, from math professors, chemistry professors, physics professors, to humanities professors, dance professors, English professors, and social scientists, political scientists, economists, sociologists, the full range, because they've seen how that these skills, the skill of deliberative learning or deliberative pedagogy, is relevant not only, to, sort of issues of public concern, but also like deliberating within their discipline about difficult topics, trying to figure out in the lab, what is our next step? How do we design this experiment? We need to be able to deliberate well with each other on those kind of questions. And that also that by doing this work, we actually learn the material better. And Sarah Drury at Wabash and other researchers in this area have actually shown that, when you embed this work in your courses, you actually not only sort of teach the skills of deliberation and how to engage across differences and reasoning well together, you also learn the material better. And that's pretty cool. So hopefully that helps, Maggie. If you're part of the deep collaborative, join this. You'll learn a lot more about deliberative learning and deliberative pedagogy. So let's see. So yeah, it looks like the chat may just be disabled. So I'm just going through these questions, and they're coming in nicely. So yeah, so Josh, thank you for your question. Can you share what relationship, if any, you have with other national deliberation efforts? So I've been doing this a while now, 6 years. I've actually done many trainings. I've done trainings with Braver Angels, with Interactivity Foundation, with I've used a lot of Constructive Dialogue Institute's materials, including their Perspectives platform. Our fellows go through that process, and Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. I've participated in some of their training, and so a lot of our work is integrated in a lot of the sort of programming in the DCI and DCN builds on this great work that people have been doing across the country for many years. Some of those speakers, Martine Carcassonne at Colorado State, for example, we've built on a lot of his work in terms of thinking about deliberation, debate, dialogue, et cetera. And so I really see this network as a way to sort of, for us to kind of share and identify a lot of those different resources for participants in the network, and to help them think, okay, what's most useful, what's most helpful for me in my institution? Because we've gone through it, right? At Davidson, we've been developing our program. Again, it's not perfect. We have a lot of things we can improve on, but we've gone through this, and we've thought about all these different resources, and we can help you think through, okay, what's best for us? You mentioned specifically, Josh, NIFI, and great institution. We've used some of their issue guides in some of our work. They're going to be developing some new ones. Really exciting new program called What's Next America, following the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. It actually has the potential to build on our collaboration we've been doing this past year with Duke University and University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where we co-hosted a series of expert roundtables together. We hosted two at UNC, and Chapel Hill hosted two. There were called American Values Deliberative Forum Series, looking at values that are in the Constitution, in the Declaration of Independence. What are they? How do they connect each other? What tensions they have? And so we haven't selected our topics for next year, but we potentially could have some nice connections to NIFI's What's Next America initiative. So I'm looking forward to sort of following up that. So big picture, I'm really, kind of excited about the opportunity to help connect all these efforts. I was just at a summit at the University of Delaware that Tim Schaefer put on. And there's a lot of great programs, a lot of great work across the country, a lot of great institutions doing this work. Interfaith America is another, Citizens and Scholars is another, and we've used and connected with all these institutions, and we want to, and organizations, and want to continue to do so. So hopefully that answers your question, Josh. The calendar of events and training opportunities are already set and available to view. So to some extent, they are. So the training, that deep collaborative or orientation workshop that is set for August 12th through 14th. And that is really important. Like the faculty members need to be able to make that because that really kind of provides the foundation for the year. And then also the deliberation facilitator training in late August and September. Those are set, and it's important for people to be able to make those. Those don't have to be in person, though. Those can be online, but those are Sunday afternoons, and it's important for everybody to be able to make those. But our actual events, our forums, our D teams, those are not set in terms of times or topics. And we have a very kind of structured process for developing and identifying our topics for the year. So we first do a survey. You all could participate. You could suggest ideas for the coming year. And then we do a second survey where we ask people to rank those topics. So we can see what the community, and this is the DCI community, but also the general public can rank those topics. And then we sort of get together our co-conveners and identify, okay, what do we see as the constellation of topics for D teams and for forums that make the most sense for the following year? And we look at, what's coming up. So we have an election year, for example. Maybe there's some interesting and important Supreme Court cases that are relevant, domestic, international sort of context. And we sort of, map out a plan of topics and a calendar for the year. Basically, we'll be doing that in, sort of early summer, late spring, early summer. And so that will be that everybody will be able to join from across the country, but then your individual campuses will be able to develop your own programs, on different topics, right? So hopefully there's a nice nexus here between things we're doing that are easy and things you're doing that are customized, to your individual campus context. So, all right, next question. So, is deliberation a specific model of engagement, like civil discourse has a specific process and rules for hosting, et cetera? Or is it more an approach to dialogue? I think it's kind of both. Elisa, thanks for that question. So we try to kind of map out a general sort of framework for thinking about deliberation as a form of discourse. So very roughly speaking, we think of there's kind of conversation, which is very informal. Discussion is kind of more mapping a landscape, of positions on a particular issue. Dialogue is then diving into those positions and why people hold them. What are the facts, evidence, life stories, experiences that inform those positions? And then debate is really kind of interrogating and thinking about analyzing those reasons. And I really agree with this reason you have for this, and this is why. And then on this reason, I actually don't agree, and here's why. And really trying to kind of get it, the sort of the truth, or truths on the topic at hand. And then deliberation is then, okay, we take all of that, we take all that dialogue, discussion, and debate, and then weigh those reasons and come to a decision on the topic at hand. And so in that sense, that's a kind of general framework. We try to be pretty sort of broad-based in what we recommend. We provide a lot of different frameworks and models that faculty can use in their classes, for example, and our facilitation training does as well. That said, we do provide a model to start with, and to sort of help you get off the ground. So, for example, everybody recommends having conversation agreements at the beginning of a deliberation. But the specific content of those conversation agreements may vary. So we present our version and recommend it, but others, you might adjust those to your particular context. So Alyssa, hopefully that answers your question. And on all these questions, I'm happy to follow up more offline afterwards if you'd like me to sort of, kind of continue and answer any further questions you have. So, all right, so Dylan has a question. Thank you for this webinar. I was wondering if you could please show us the overview screen again, maybe also explain how you hope participating institutions might, hope it might further these efforts beyond the first year. Okay, so that's a great question. Maybe I'll call back up my my PowerPoint here for you guys, and so you can see, I think this is the one that you're talking about, Dylan. So share, and here we go. So I think I'll still be on the screen. So you can see me there. Hopefully, Dylan, that's what you're looking for. So yeah, so what might you further do beyond that first year? So yeah, the first year is more intensive, right? Sort of really ramping up the learning curve on this stuff, developing your programs, and then also plans, right? So campus plans, how do you want to build off of the work of the discourse team in year 2, 3, 4, et cetera? And then also that academic pathway, the faculty members sort of thinking about strategizing with other faculty members. How can we continue this beyond just the work of us, right? That's 2 faculty members. Like, how can we do more, right? How can we embed it in our curriculum? And, as we go, we'll be able to talk about that, right? And share notes, and maybe generate ideas for, each other that we could take back to our institutions. So those are, both the kind of campus co-curricular, community-based, kind of deliberation, and the in the classroom work, sort of thinking about what's next. You'll all still be members of the network, and you'll be able to kind of continue connecting with each other over time, asking us for advice or thoughts. And maybe we start developing some sort of sub networks, where regional collaborations, if you're all people out west or up in the Northeast, or certain types of institutions could continue to collaborate and connect with each other. So I'm excited about the first year, but I'm also excited about the chance to grow beyond the first year, and having this 4-year sort of window where we're here, and we're going to be hiring additional staff, to complement the existing staff we have here at Davidson, to help you do all this work. So Dylan, hopefully that's helpful. So Sarah, thanks for your question. I work at a community college, and the student body is somewhat unpredictable year to year. Do the 8 to 10 students have to be identified at the time of applying, or will it be sufficient to identify them over the course of the summer? No, they do not have to be identified at the time of applying. So that hopefully makes it a little easier for you, Sarah. We recognize, that can be hard for any institution. And that, but just to have a plan, how are you going to identify students, and when you're planning to do it? We do recommend, as you're kind of getting at in your question, to try to identify them over the summer so they're ready to go and they're signed up and ramped up for that deliberation facilitator training right at the end of August. So Sarah, hopefully, that helps. And, I want to say, we really would love to have community colleges participate. So if you have other questions along those lines that are specific to your particular context, please reach out. All right, so Sarah DeKirk, does the application need to identify all 3 individuals by name? Yes, actually it does. That is something that we've identified as important, that you have the commitment of those 3 people, that they're going to take this forward, that you have, a group, a cohort that you can sort of, they're excited and ready to advance this. And I've seen this both for my own work with the Deep Collaborative, having a couple people do this from institution really, adds a lot of value. We also have been members of Citizens and Scholars, Faculty Institute, and we've seen that benefit there as well. But if Sarah, if you have trouble with that, or questions, please follow up, and I can try to help there more. Okay, Josh, thinking about evaluation and assessment, are there data that all institutions will collect, or common measures all institutions will be looking at? Yes, great question. There will be, and there will be some surveys that we will be asking every institution to participate in. We actually have, as part of our federal grant, an external evaluator who has, working with us, designed a kind of evaluation and assessment plan to show, that we're actually doing what we're saying we're doing. We're having the outcomes that we're hoping to have. And so, it'll be really important for every institution within the network to help us show those impacts, show what's working, show what's not working, and how we can improve. So, and that will be, we'll be able to provide more information about that over time. So, Okay, next question. If we only recruit 8 or fewer students to this program, would we be able to reallocate funding to other needs, expenses related to deliberative events we'd sponsor? So that's a really good question. Any kind of changes, in the funding, we have to kind of justify back to the Department of Education, and we're prepared to sort of justify. Okay, if you say you just can't get 10 students, we can say, okay, well that's something we can justify. Being able to sort of move funds to something else, that's another order of change, and so we'd have to sort of talk about that, think about that with you, and how that could work. But I think there might be things we could work with. So whoever's asking that question, that could be something that you might follow up with us specifically. And I'm going to actually write that down as a kind of additional FAQ that we might be able to sort of follow up on. So that's a great question, whoever asked it. Laura Murray, so in terms of recruiting 2 faculty members to participate, are you looking specifically for faculty from across 2 different disciplines and are using diverse methods, et cetera? Laura, that's a great question. We don't really have an expectation there. I think that's something for you to sort of figure out what would work best for your institution. I think there's arguments both ways, right? So having people from different disciplines, even natural science, social science, humanities could be really helpful. But I could also see an argument for having people who have some overlapping interests as well. So we don't have a sort of dog in that fight, so to speak. That I think you want to think about what is best for you, what you think. As you think about that academic pathway, which 2 faculty would be the best for kind of advancing that pathway and helping the institution think through what will help sustain this work over time. So, Laura, I hope that helps a little bit. Okay, back to Sarah. So will a recording of this webinar be available after the fact? Yes, we are recording it, I think, yeah. And so I did see the record button on, so we will try to share this so that people can watch it if they weren't able to, or can go back to it even if you were here. Somebody asked, what is NIFI? Just a National Issues Forum Institute, and it's an I at the end, NIFI. And it was created by the Kettering Foundation. They're now independent. They've been developing deliberation guides, issue guides for like 20, 30 years. And they've really been a leader in this space for a long time. And they're planning to do some great work moving forward. So, okay, so is the calendar events, what were some of the hurdles, if any, to getting faculty buy-in for the initiative? And I'm assuming DCI. So yeah, I mean, we started this right in the middle of the pandemic. And so we expected a lot of challenges initially, but it was amazing. There was a lot of interest. We actually partnered with the Associated Colleges of the South. We had some faculty members from Morehouse and Spelman, Rollins, and Southwestern, and a couple others, as well as Davidson, from across several different disciplines in our first cohort. And from Davidson, we had environmental studies and religious studies and economics and a whole range of faculty. And I think what they were finding across all these different contexts was that they were finding the students just were not engaging. Whenever they tried to bring up difficult topics, there was just silence. There's a kind of quiet and fear, and so they really wanted to sort of start thinking through how could they, introduce new pedagogical techniques and teaching styles and strategies for really, bringing together more, creating a space where students felt more able to engage with each other. And I think they've really found that it's been effective. And so that's been, I guess you'd say, contagious, right? Like And you can read their blog posts. And I encourage you to do so, to see, okay, wow, like, this is really working. And then that's encourage other faculty to participate. So, and so I think, so that, experience of other faculty, and we've had panels, actually, you can watch on our blog, the DCI blog, we have videos of faculty panels of faculty members who have done the deep collaborative, and they talk about their experience in it and how they've used the word transformative it was for their teaching. And it's really changed how they approach, what they do in the classroom. So now, but, there are hurdles. Yeah, I've had some colleagues who either love to do it, but they just don't have the time. And, they can't schedule, be able to attend, the workshop in the summer. Some of that's inevitable. I think, getting it on people's calendars as far out in advance as possible can help. And then also sort of, look, this is not your whole life, right? We meet, once a month, and we have some readings, but usually they find the reading, they're pretty short, and they find them really helpful. And so it's not a huge time commitment. I think that I saw a question about what's the time commitment for faculty. So it's those, 2-3 days in the summer, and then every month or so, joining a Zoom call for an hour to talk with other members of your cohort about your work, about how you're advancing your deliberative lesson course plan. You're sort of thinking about how you're going to teach your course, and sharing your questions and your progress. So it's really not that much, especially if you're committed to this, is like actually engaging and something to look forward to. Okay, so John has a question. I am not at an individual college or university. I work with the public institutions in Massachusetts to support civic learning and engagement, and would like to invite them to apply. Is the best entry point to send out to them your webpage and invitation to join the DCN? I think, John, that's one way to go for sure. I think we'd also, love to sort of follow up. Is there a way for us to productively engage with your system, right? And how we might be able to think creatively about that. So I think we've communicated already, John, a little bit. Look forward to sort of following up on that conversation. And I think there are other systems, and if any of you out there are part of a system, then would love to sort of have that conversation as well. I think we can try to be creative about that. And maybe one institution starts, and then there's a kind of cascade effect or something we can, or you partner across a couple institutions. So let's follow up on that, John, for sure. Okay, so if we do not yet have the names of the staff person, is that okay? Could we just indicate the title or job position? I think ideally, you would have the name of the person, but maybe you're filling that position or something, and you just don't have, or there's a new position, that kind of thing. I think that's certainly fine. And if you just make a note in your application, like why you don't have that person's name, and what and why you think that position is important, that'd be great. So and again, if you have these kind of specific questions, please don't hesitate to follow up individually. So what will students receive after completing this programming? Something they could add to their resumes. Yeah. So what we do at again, sort of speaking from experience here at Davidson, so we call our things Deliberative Citizenship Fellows Program, and they're a fellow, right? And they can, if they complete the full year of programming we have, sort of coming to events, facilitating conversations, participating in our meetings, whatever, is part of our kind of fellowship curriculum, then, they're a fellow and they can put that on their resume. And we've had, I've had a good number of fellows say that they go into, interviews with people, and, whatever the job is, government, business, nonprofit, invariably, like, the interviewer wants to ask them about DCI and not their, like, kind of field specific experience. Like going into a finance job, I'm president of the finance club, but they don't ask them about that. They ask about DCI. And so they're really curious. And then others have said that the skills they've learned as fellows have been incredibly useful in their internships, in their first jobs, in terms of navigating difficult conversations in the workplace. So that's something certainly that they can put on their resume, and so you could ostensibly have deliberative citizenship fellows program at your school. We're not dictating to you like exactly how that curriculum is, how intensive it is. The main things are to participate in our D teams. All the discourse teams, we ask that the students, the faculty, the staff members all participate in D teams, participate in the deliberative forums, and then do that work of figuring out campus discourse programs and plans on their campuses. You can add more to that. So our program actually has more. Our fellows meet weekly, and definitely encourage you to do that. Whether sort of $500 is enough to do more than what we're requiring is something that your institution can sort of figure out. We're happy to consult on. We pay our fellows hourly because that's what we're required to do. But your institution may be able to do something different, and that's something we can again consult with you on, and sort of help you customize it to your own context. So that's a little bit kind of tangent, but maybe helpful. So you mentioned, Daniel is asking, you mentioned your facilitators complete the Constructive Dialogue Project's Perspectives program. When do they do that? Do they go through all 6 modules or a select few? And do you integrate perspectives in the deliberative framework? So this is something we do. We're not requiring you guys to do it. Recommend it, but it's something that we found helpful. So they do it, just for background, Daniel. So they go through that fellows, that deliberation facilitator training program in August, September. And then in that fall semester, we have them do all 6 modules, including the conversations, the 3 sets of conversations with each other. And I assign them, in pairs to each other. And so they're getting to know each other through the Perspectives program. And then we finish that up by the end of the fall semester, and we do it sort of incrementally. And we find it's really good. For those of you who don't know, it kind of introduces some of the sort of psychological theories and concepts about why conversations are difficult on challenging topics, the sort of problems of motivated reasoning and fight or flight response, in a sense, when you encounter difference and it makes you uncomfortable, and then how to navigate those psychological barriers. And so it's a really helpful framework. So we don't do integrate perspectives in. We don't directly, because it's a kind of standalone thing, but we talk about it quite a bit. So hope that helps, Daniel. Alyssa, sorry if you already answered this. Students need to take the training at the end of August. Our university does not start the academic year until after Labor Day. Yeah, so we can talk about this, but it is scheduled for that last weekend in July, which I think is after Labor Day. But maybe there's a way you can incorporate it into kind of orientation or something. It is online, right? So even if they're not back on campus, they could potentially join, from home or something. So, and this, might be something, students elsewhere would do anyway. If they're not residential at community colleges, they might need to do that too. So, hope that helps, Alyssa. And again, happy to follow up further. What happens after year 1 for the first school cohort? Do they continue with fellowships for 3 more years? So you can. We don't provide funding beyond the first year, but that would be up to your institution to continue that work, continue funding and finding. And that's something we can also consult and coach you on, right? Sort of identifying funding, making the case, to your institution, to potential donors, to foundations, so, okay, this is I believe this is really foundational. This work is foundational to every higher education institution, and that we all should be funding this in some way as a baseline part of our budget, and so because these fellows do incredible work on campus to kind of spread the skills and dispositions that are really important right now and timelessly for learning and for democratic citizenship, engaging across differences in a pluralistic society. So, but the short answer is I think we'd hope that you'd continue those fellowships, and in that first year, part of that planning is say, okay, how can we continue to support this work over time? So, Doug, hopefully that answers your question. And that's the last in my list here. So let me just scroll back through, make sure I didn't miss any as I was going. I think that's everything. It looks like there's another list here. Yeah, I think that's everything. So if anybody has any other questions, please add them to the questions. But I think we are just a little bit over time. So, it's been about an hour. I hope this has been helpful. I hope everyone, let's see, make sure there's not, okay, yeah. I'm going to turn this off now and close that. And just say thank you for being here. I hope this has been helpful to you all in learning more about the DCI, about the DCN, about deliberative citizenship. And I really hope you'll consider applying and that you'll reach out if you have any questions about anything we've covered so far. There's much more information in the invitation itself, which is on that link, that QR code that I showed earlier about the DCN process and what it includes. And then there's a whole lot more too about the DCI, about the Deep Collaborative at our DCI website, which is deliberativecitizenship.org, which you can find all kinds of information there too. So, and then you can email dci@davidson.edu or me directly, grbullock@davidson.edu. So, so with that, make sure there's nothing that's popped up in the last second. Oh, here's something. Yeah, so we'll post something about the recording. We'll post this probably at least as a blog post on the DCI website, and maybe if we can get it up, we may be able to try to get it up on the DCN website that's part of davidson.edu, but at least as a blog post on DCI. So what you can do is you can go to deliberativecitizenship.org, go to the bottom of any page and sign up for updates at the bottom, and then you'll get every new blog post that comes out, which come out once a week or so, and when that comes out, you'll get it, or you can check back on the website next couple days. Last question I see, you say each faculty member will redesign a course in their own discipline, and the 2 faculty participants from each institution will also collaborate to develop a joint course focused on civil discourse and deliberation. What if we already have such courses? Can we work on revising rather than creating? Yes. Thank you for that question. Yeah, so to be a member, to be a part of the Deep Collaborative, you don't necessarily have to create an entirely new course. The idea is to add, you could create a new course, or you could add more deliberation, more civil discourse to an existing course, and just make it better. The idea is to just help give you the space, the time, the resources to build on whatever you already have. So if you have something already, let's build on that and make it better. So hopefully that helps answer that question. Again, please reach out if you have any other questions over email, and I can follow up more then, but really appreciate you all being here and look forward to following up further. And I guess we'll end it there. Thanks very much.